I've been testing out and designing some labels. These labels are designed to go on the backs of floppy disks. So, the idea is you take an old floppy disk and you format it in several different formats. And then you tick off the boxes, and that shows that in fact, hey, you can use this in an Apple II, it'll work. You can use this on a Commodore 64, it'll work. You can use it on an MS-DOS machine, it'll work. And the quad density SD1001 format, if it passes that test, then you know this is a high quality disk. Even when it was new back in the day, not all double density disks would work in this drive because that was intended for quad density disks. It's a quad density drive. But the decent quality disks would work in it, that were, even though they were only double density, they would still work in it. And in fact, instead of the silicon lottery, you can think of it as the Ferris lottery. So, if a disk passes the test, it means it's of the highest quality. And since all these disks are old at this point, that's kind of important, especially for me when I am distributing software on floppy disk. So, let's take a look at this disk, because I just had a whole box of disks, like 10, 11 disks, 12 disks, and they all came out 100% working grade A. But if you look at this one did not. So you can see it worked for Apple, you know, at the 140K single-sided, Commodore 64 and a 1541, the 35 track format, single-sided, it worked. An MS-DOS disk, 360, double-sided, it worked. And that's a harder test to pass, because if there's a problem, these are lower density formats, especially on the inner tracks here, because this is the same density for every track, whereas these, you know, slow the disk down or do different densities. So this is a harder test, but this is the hardest test. And so for this disk, I thought, okay, well, this is still a potentially usable disk because it works for those other formats, so maybe it didn't win the Ferris lottery, all right? But let's just check it. Let's just see how it looks. So what I do is I get a very, very bright light, and I hold the disk up to that light, and I peek through the disk. And lo and behold, you'll see here, and in fact, you can see the light peeking through. I'm going to zoom in. You can see the light there. So this has some damage to it. And if I zoom in here, in fact, I wonder if I can zoom in under my little viewer here, if you can even see it. It's hard to see. I think see, it's right in the middle there, right beside that speck of dust. So this speck of dust here on the disk that just happens to be nearby, you can see there's no holes in it. You can't see any scratches on the surface or anything. I can even try and flip it around to see if we see anything on the other side. That looks like just dust. Here, let's look at that. See, with the very bright light, I can see through it, but when I look very closely, I can't see any scratches on the surface. Yeah. So, my point is that this testing method works. And it works because it allows me to both visually confirm and systematically test the quality of the surface of the disc. And so this method is useful because if you're like, oh, I'm just going to, use it for the Commodore, and you format it and it works and you think, okay, it's fine. But the fact of the matter is it may not be fine. And in this case, there are spots where the light peeks through. Now, is that a manufacturing problem? And it's entirely possible that this disc was like this from the factory. There's no signs of mold, so I don't think it's the case that the damage has happened later. I think it was made this way. But again, for these formats, especially, for example, this Apple format, the density of the magnetic flux that's being written to the disc, it might be such, or even just the placement of the tracks, that the holes on the disc, they may not be in an area that is a problem for any of these formats. And it's only the harshest quad density standard that this one even made for that reveals it. Having said that, you're not supposed to see little holes when you shine it through the light. So I can safely say, all right, I'm not going to distribute this disc to anyone. I may use this for my own testing and debugging and when I'm working on drives and stuff. And it might be good enough for me to use in these other contexts here. But the point is, it's not a grade A disc. It's a grade B disc. And I think that's a fair rating to give it because a grade A disc means it works in the most demanding scenario, which is this quad density format. But in all others, it's fine. Now, is it possible that this damage is bad enough that it actually maybe wouldn't be fine? Well, I was able to successfully format it for MS-DOS. So maybe the answer is, yeah, it's fine. But the point is, that's what the sticker's for. And in fact, the bottom of the sticker shows me the date. So what this means is I can take an entire box of these and I can test them all, right? And when I look on the back, I can go, all right, I tested it and it worked for all these formats in December of 2025. So I know that this has the highest likelihood of working in just about any context. And I think that's a pretty good system. And I think these labels are useful. So maybe this is something I should just sell in my store. Maybe other people would just like to have nice, decent looking little labels like this that would allow them to do the same testing on their own. And, and if they don't have all of these drives, they could probably get away with just the first three and ignore the SFD 1001 and, at least give it their own grade A rating. Because you could test the first three and then hold this up to the light. For instance, this one that did not have any problems. And when we hold it up to the light, actually, interestingly enough, so there's the light. It's actually quite a bit darker. Compared to the other disc, the light is not passing through quite as easily. So let's grab the other disc. So here's the light, and you can see, yes, there's holes, but it's also thinner. So maybe this particular brand, it's got a white ring on it, so it's obviously a different brand than this disc. But clearly, maybe it wasn't as good. I don't know. And they both have rings. They're both double density discs. I'm not confusing double density and high density here. It's just this ring is white and this one's dark. But, maybe I forget. Maybe I get confused. Oh, I just have to check the back. And this is the good one. And this is the grade B one. So, maybe this is something that people would like. I can put it in my store. And if they don't, that's fine too. But I'm using it for my own internal QA process, and I think it's pretty neato. Like your Commodore 64, which does not have a chip like a Dorito. Have a good one.